Hello, and welcome to Prism. Prism is a design-oriented podcast hosted by me, Dan Hardin. Like a glass prism that reveals the color hidden inside white light, this podcast will reveal the inside story behind innovation, especially the people that make it happen. My aim is to uncover each guest's unique point of view, their insights, their methods, or their own secret motivator, perhaps, that fuels their creative genius. Hey everybody, welcome to the Prism Podcast. Office Hours. Now remember, Office Hours is an open forum where I field questions from listeners, and these can be questions about industrial design, business, tech, the creative process, or any topics within the greater design community that interest you. Now, it's been a while since I've done one of these. I have been completely slammed with work, which is a good thing, right? It's a good sign that the economy is not in a complete heap of trouble. But today I'm actually going to field a question from Clarissa from Ohio. And Clarissa, I'm sorry it's taken so long to get this out, but here we go. You had this question. Here it is. In the past few weeks, I've been struggling with this barrier that has made it incredibly difficult to find creative motivation. And when I do, everything I work on just ends up in the trash. So I wanted to ask, what methods do you use to overcome creative block? Oh, what a great question. I like it because creative block is something that every designer, engineer, artist, writer, musician faces. I mean, it's a fact of the creative process. Plus, it really does. Another reason I like it is it just goes to the heart of what I love to do, and that is to create. I've made a life out of it. Being creative and designing is still the most favorite part of my job as a business owner. I have to do a lot of things here, of course, but my favorite part is the actual design process. I would say at least half of my time, probably more, at Whipsaw, I'm actively designing client projects where I sometimes get stuck, like everybody does. And on weekends, I paint and sometimes just stare at a blank canvas, and I have a little bit of creative block before I really start rolling into it. So I'm going to dedicate this whole podcast to answering this one question. What methods do I use to overcome creative block? I wrote a couple of notes down here, but first, to get the stage set, I like to first get in the right frame of mind. I think designers need to remind themselves why you're a designer in the first place. Because when you're driven by your own personal cause as a designer, it always propels you forward, and it's more likely you will find your creative motivation just because you're embracing who you are. You have to let the problem become your imperative, like your mission. Let it even enter your soul, just be a part of it. And then you start to tap into these hidden answers that are sometimes in the corners of your subconscious. And you just need to unlock those. You'll be surprised what already lurks in there. You just can't hesitate to reach for it. And just always believe in yourself as a creator and believe that you will solve the problem no matter what. We always say visualize success, and in design, I think that applies more than anything, because seeing success and seeing a solution, that visualization process is so natural to us. So you have to visualize your own success. I also think that it's important to find what inspires you. I mean, that kind of goes without saying. But to me, I think being inspired, it's a way of life. It's not just something you apply every once in a while. It's a way of life. So finding your inspiration is just, it's not something you do occasionally. It's not something you do when you are staring a design problem in the face and it's due tomorrow. You have to be curious and observant all the time. I think it's important to fill up your inspiration tank by living a big life. I mean, to go forth and do things, love a lot, and try anything. are kind of my favorite action verbs for life. And with that base attitude, design inspiration becomes like air. It's just around you all the time. I think the key is to just be very present and open your eyes. Watch carefully how people are doing things. Just be super observant. Ask lots of questions to the point of being annoying. Really. Critically examine things and just take it all in. When you're taking it in, I think it's important to look for nuance, because a lot of my breakthroughs, and I've noticed this with the whole staff, is that a little nuanced problem set sometimes reveals a great big answer. And there's good inspiration in the small things between the big obvious ones. Let those little nuggets of inspiration speak to you, even if they're in whispered tones. Of all the thousands of things in history that have been invented, most started out with a little ping in someone's head. Sometimes nothing more than that, just a little ping. Just be aware of it so you can listen. You can pick it up. Of course, it's easiest to be inspired by what already turns you on. Like in my case, that's art, architecture, really clever machines, astronomy, travel, nature. I go on. As you can see, a lot of things can be inspiring to me. I can't get enough of those things, but I also get inspired by new things that I don't know anything about. And quite honestly, as a design consultant, that happens all the time. And it's partly what makes my job so exciting, learning about new technologies, different viewpoints, working with brilliant people that bring certain kind of technologies or way of doing something or a service into our office. It's really extraordinary. That's inspirational. But yeah, the diverse categories we design for, ranging from baby products and wearables to quantum computers and gene sequencing machines. I mean, if that doesn't inspire you, I don't know what does. So just keeping that open mind again. The sheer wonder of discovery I find inspirational. And when you can capture and express that feeling of wonder in your design, man, there's nothing better. Let's talk for a moment about the design process, because being aware of the steps are good for getting you out of a creative rut. I like to, especially upon approaching a design problem, I like to just be quiet and be with it. Take it in. When I say approach a design problem, it's like walking up to somebody you don't know, I suppose. Don't try to figure out or judge that person all at once. Let them surprise you with their complexity and their personality over time. It will change how you feel about that person. And design is the same way. Let it come to you. Sometimes you let it gestate. Let it be with it, maybe for a week or two. You'll be surprised what happens. Focus instead on creating this heightened sense of awareness around the problem. I said I'd like to do it first. Just focus on that heightened sense of awareness that you'll have around the problem so you can see it from every angle. And after that incubation period where that problem ruminates in the background of your mind, that's when you're ready to create. I always start with the kind of the intuitive, dreamy stuff without worrying anything about feasibility quite yet. I'll look at the meaning, the emotions, the feelings. What should this product have? What features should it have that would it make me feel different about it? Or how should I feel in general about this subject? Sounds kind of flaky, but you know what? It works. The important thing is to get those first rough ideas down on a napkin, as they say, the proverbial napkin. There's something to that. I love then doodling because my hand goes where it wants, guided by some mysterious force. Don't try to force every little move when you're sketching like that. Just kind of let it flow. That kind of mysterious force is your subconscious, of course, and that's where all that inspiration resides. It's just percolating in there. It's your fuel. This is a really critical stage where you are emoting through a problem, and I think it's more like design seeing than it is like design thinking. And you're tapping into something far greater and potentially more profound than reasoning and thinking will get you. This is often where your big ideas are going to be born, this early stage. But don't worry, ideas will come. Sometimes, like I said, sometimes right away, sometimes weeks later. Sometimes if I get stuck, I'll just change context. I'll go wander around places like REI or Home Depot and just walk in with a general idea about what I'm after and just go look around and touch things. It's that kind of research where you're actually touching these physical objects. There's something really gratifying about it. And you can make associations and abstractions about what you're seeing and touching and what may be relevant to what you're actually trying to do with your design solution. Just let the materials and the way things are made inspire you, because I think material medium can often be the first identity of a product, the same way a paint's application expresses and even makes a painting sometimes. When you're doing this walking around to let inspiration come to you, just let your mind drift so that interesting associations pop up. After that first intuitive burst, I then build a scaffold of truths around a problem, which is the more analytical or thinking part of a process. Truths could be said like being the absolute givens. In every, at least industrial design case or an engineering case, there are absolute givens for sure. Even UX, there are absolute givens. Some of these are functional, whether it's components, mechanisms, certain kind of technology and the way it has to work, or certain maybe performance factors. Some givens are more contextual, like the environment of use, the cost, or a time factor, or a particular use case scenario. Many givens are human related, like ergonomic requirements, behavioral expectations, and even feelings. Just keep scrutinizing how someone is dealing with their particular problem that you are trying to solve for. Dissect every part of that end user's mental, emotional, and physical state, and you are going to learn almost everything you need to know. Yeah, you're going to get all kinds of recommendations from your client about this, that, and the other, and people will give you all this advice on the way something should be, but just follow what you see in front of you and follow what you're feeling inside. Internalize that end user's problem yourself by becoming them. Become the end user by doing their task, whatever they are doing, whether it's working, playing, etc. Do the same thing. It's the same way that an actor personifies their character. What that does is it builds empathy. And when someone eventually uses your design and says, hey, someone really thought about me, that's when you know you've done a good job. That's a great feeling, by the way. But have your antenna up all the time to catch these idiosyncratic, again, those little nuanced details of a user condition. And always challenge your preconceptions, because we all walk into design problems with preconceptions about what you originally thought the user wants or the demographic calls for. We all have these biases, and sometimes they're right, but they're often wrong. You just have to keep probing tirelessly. Be an augur, be a human augur to find the actual truths. Because those truths become I like to call them design informants. These design informants are the things that give you this critical information to help you get started and keep you going through a process. Sometimes you just have to accept and even embrace the givens if they are absolute. And maybe they aren't. Maybe they aren't absolute. There have been many times when we thought, no, let's challenge this, let's change it. And I think when what I mean, I guess, is to analyze these truths carefully because most of these can be overcome, or a lot can, or at least they're creatively flexible. Just don't be afraid to break any rules, not necessarily because you want to be a rebel, but because you have a vision And sometimes, yeah, the constraints are in the way. Sometimes a project only has a few constraints, in which case it's up to you as a designer to be freely innovative and very individual. Those projects are fun, but they're often the hardest because it is completely up to you to make your statement. And a lot of designers struggle when it comes to that. They're either afraid to put themselves out there because design is so personal. Sometimes, when you have few constraints like that, it might be on when you're designing, say, decorative objects that lean more towards art, and then it's all up to you. But just remember, that's your chance to pour some personality and character into your design. I mean, even a very functional problem has room to express yourself in form, color, details. There's always room to express yourself in every design. Never forget that. Sometimes your truth scaffolding becomes so dense with constraints, like a lot of problems are, especially these, we've worked on some very tough scientific products or surgical products especially. You'll find that sometimes in these cases, excuse me, sometimes in these cases, the solution begins to sort of coalesce on its own, and you're acting as a conductor. You're letting these truths present themselves honestly, and it's a matter of making a construction. It's maybe a good example of that truth stacking, you could call it, where the solution emerged from the fog on its own. I remember working on this thing called the Topcon GR3. It's a surveyor's tool. This is like, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago. I just followed a logic tree. It was about, because it was a GPS tool used outside, I just vertically centered the twin batteries along the axis of a single survey pole, which gravitationally stabilized it, sloped the top so the rain runs off, kept the controls out of the direct sun, so that was kind of underneath in this overhang, made it square so that when a user leans it against a wall, because it was a single pole, it doesn't roll off like their competitor Trimble did. And it kind of designed itself. It was really cool. This is kind of the case with a project like Tonal, where the truth scaffolding, especially human factors, was very dense, and it kind of eventually resolved itself. I'm making it sound a little too easy. Of course, there's all kinds of details and problems you have to deal with, but just honoring those truths was the best way in that case. I must say, sometimes a solution comes to you like a bolt of lightning, and that always feels good. But you know what? They usually start with a little spark of insight that conjures up some vague starter image. And you just have to give that a chance. Blow on that flame ever so gently. See what's there. Even a great song starts with a few notes or chords. A lot of the great writers and composers of music, that's how they talk about how they write music. And they'll start with just a simple note progression that speaks to them, and all of a sudden it causes this avalanche. Design is the same. Remember also, don't expect that your solution is going to come to you whole. It takes work. You can start small, then add, subtract, develop, just keep working on it. Detailing is way more involved and iterative and even rewarding than you think. It's often tempting to say, and I see this especially with young designers, where you're like, oh, I'm done. That's it. And then you don't want to veer off course from that. But keep going, keep digging. You are not done. The solution won't even sing until the last 5% is tackled. All of my best work didn't really pop until late in the process. It may have, some ideas are, even in their ephemeral early state, can be cool. They can be promising, but that does not necessarily make them a great design yet. Another thing, try not to get too married to a single concept early on. There's so many good conceptual offshoots floating around perhaps your main idea that might be better. Just let one element lead to the next. You learn by taking these steps. A design project is kind of, you could say, a string of cool failures that leads to one success. The failings are sometimes the best part of a project because you learn the most from them. And the failures are often the things that expose the truths that you're after. They also act as, you could say, critical wayfinders, helping you to navigate your way through the dark. I actually love looking back at a creative trail of failures when a project is done. People have asked, what role does failure play, and talk about some of the failures. I think most design projects, it is, like I said, a string of failures that leads to one that really works. But these failures can be very beautiful too. They are not duds. They're not really failures. They're just different expressions that may not be as appropriate as the one that you ultimately landed on. Another hint on getting unstuck, I like to say, uncover the hidden faculty of your subject. Okay, what do I mean by that? On almost every project, there's usually a hidden gem of function, meaning, or essence. And it might be the little magical piece of tech that's inside. It might be a unique interaction moment or opportunity. It might be a motion or a symbolic element that makes a product conceptually special. And when you're designing, that gem needs to be, you got to find that. And then you need to identify it as, that's my hidden faculty right there. Then it's your job to extract it, express it, and celebrate it through your design. That truly is your job. It's to find that faculty and give it a voice. When you do, you create iconic products that people never forget and they always want, because it speaks to them. It speaks to some maybe unmet need or some hidden deep emotion that people feel about a certain product or UX, and it just feels right. Okay, another really helpful thing to get unstuck is around abstraction, which I love because I dig painting, and that's all my work, the abstraction, at least when I express myself artistically. Sometimes if I get stuck on a design project, I like to find inspiration in loosely related, non-figurative ideas. For example, if you're designing a toaster, a lot of designers will run to and look at all the toasters out on the market. They have to research everyone. Don't just look at the toasters for reference. Look at the abstract notions like the persistence of hunger, for example, or what does rapid transformation mean? That's really all that Toast is doing. What is the nature of that rapid transformation? Or when you wake up in the morning on a nice day, nice sunny day, there is a certain tranquility to that moment. Maybe capture some of that in the toaster. Maybe consider how nature deals with a problem, because I mean, nature always fascinates me and humbles me. Again, going back to what inspires you. It is really the grandest design of all. So it's right there for you. So if you're really stuck, go look at how nature solves a problem. Also think abstractly about how maybe other creative fields, like whether you're a musician or a poet, how do they create beauty? It's a different medium than design, but music and writing have the power to move you, I think perhaps sometimes even more than good design. Think about the best books you've ever read or the best poetry. It can change your life. It's rare that we say, well, that particular design. No, I'm not going to say that, because a lot of design has changed my life. But we certainly strive for that. We should all be striving for that. I think the way a story is structured, whether you are writing music or a book, how that story is revealed in order to convey a certain meaning is pretty much identical to design. That's why a lot of people talk about design and storytelling. I believe that's pretty true. The more you design, you realize it's all about merging thoughtful content, and design is about merging thoughtful content, whether that's an object or a digital experience or maybe a way of perceiving a brand, just merging it into a lifestyle where it feels very, very natural. And that's I guess you could say in one sense that's storytelling. I'm sitting here in this room and I'm looking out at this Scrolla chair down below, and I can tell you when I was sketching that, my abstract frame of mind was focused on the secure feeling you get when you're being cuddled. Bear with me. So I wanted a lounge chair to feel like it's going to receive me and kind of cuddle me. And so naturally I was thinking about organic flow to make that happen. That sentiment felt right to me for a lounge chair. The curvy shapes just came out of my hand because that was my state of mind. That's what I mean by thinking abstractly. Put yourself in that abstract state of mind, and design can start to flow. All the rest of the design, in that case, like the dimensions, the construction method, the joinery, and the final shaping, came after that essential abstraction, which really created the design. That was the moment of kind of design genesis. Let's see. Another helpful tip to break through creative logjam: get physical. Because most of us are kinesthetic learners. We figure stuff out by working with our hands. I know CAD is awesome. And AI, Midjourney, for example, can be awesome, but it is not very sensory rich. Just grab anything around you to get in touch with a concept. Fold paper, carve wood, shape clay, sand foam, make a bunch of 3D prints. It really helps, not only to understand the form and the expected delivery through this form of expression, but things like scale and approach and the presence that a product has is felt much more when you represent it in 3D. You'll be surprised what happens when you get more physical with your design. And even your physical manifestations will feed right back up your hands and arms into your brain. I guess you'd say it's good to get out of your head and re-enter it from a different perspective that's been informed by your physical environment. That's a good way of saying it. I love these embodiment aspects of design like this, where hand and mind meld. In fact, we know that the motor cortex stimulates the prefrontal cortex, where creativity is happening. So go make something and get your hands dirty. Another helpful tip, maybe the best one to break this creative block, is to get social. Talk to colleagues. Run ideas past someone to see what they think. If your mind is open, their feedback will open it much further. I especially like to ask non-designers what they think. And remember, don't be surprised. The honesty will be humbling. Because you might think you've got something. It's like then you talk to somebody, oh my gosh, I'm not even close. And you know what? It also prevents you from falling in love too soon with your own concept. As a matter of fact, we have this thing at Whipsaw called a hootenanny. And a hootenanny is a term from the South where folks in a village would grab any instrument they had. They came together for a quick little party where they played music. Our hootenanny here at Whipsaw is when you are stuck on a project You jump on Slack and you request a hootenanny. And whoever is available at that time grabs their pen and paper and meets up to help solve a problem. And we do these all week long. We call hootenannies. They've become hoots. And they are a blast. It's, going social. I don't mean social media, but it relates very much to deep research and the importance of sharing your particular challenges and your conditions with others. So, in conclusion, Clarissa from Ohio, I know that was a long answer to a pretty quick question, but I thought the question deserved a sincere answer, and I really hope that helped, because we all get creative blocks sometimes. It's not surprising. Creativity can be very frustrating, but it's also so darn rewarding. Oh, it's, when you can sense the solution nearby and it's hiding from you, even when it's might be right in front of your face and you can sense it, but you can't quite see it, that can be frustrating. So I'm hoping that some of these perspectives shed some light on that. I do think because creativity and problem solving can sometimes be elusive and difficult, it is truly rewarding when you finally get it. There's no better feeling than cracking a tough problem or designing something of stunning beauty or deep meaning, and ultimately, you hope for a lasting impact. You just have to have the courage to do it. There's no better thing you can do in your life than to create and solve problems for an ailing world. I truly believe that. I think being able to do this creatively, being able to act creatively and perform on a high creative level, it's probably our highest ideal. It's one of the greatest gift that humans have. Well, everybody, thank you for listening. I enjoyed talking about this topic. If you'd like to submit questions, you can go to whipsaw.com, Prism Office Hours. That's this little separate thing we do where it's just me talking about whatever. And I've enjoyed this. So take care, everybody. We'll see you soon. Thank you for listening to Prism. Follow us on whipsaw.com or your favorite streaming platform, and we'll be back with more thought-provoking episodes soon.
Prism is hosted by Dan Hardin, Principal Designer and CEO of Whipsaw. Produced by Saoirse Lewis, mix and sound design by Eric Buell.